My name is Gaia Nafziger, and I'm the Graduate Student Coordinator for the R.L.A. Speaker Series. Thank you for attending our speaker series in the Department of Landscape Architecture and Environmental Planning. This is the Craig Johnson Speaker Series lecture. During his impressive tenure at Utah State University, he enriched the educational experiences of countless students and conducted innumerable environmental planning and ecological restoration projects. Craig has had an enormous impact on this department and the landscape architecture profession over the years. Local legend. The mission of the speaker series is to engage our students and faculty with thought leaders in the allied design professions. These talks are recorded for posterity, for use in the studios, and for the greater community. We ask that you be engaged and polite during these talks, to listen and quietly take notes, to avoid digital distraction, and to stay for the entirety of the talk. A short Q&A will follow, after which you can scan the code for attendance and meet upstairs in the common studio for more conversation and refreshment. It is my pleasure to introduce Quint Redmond, co-founder and managing member of Agriburbia. Quint is a nationally recognized leader at the intersection of agriculture, land use design, and sustainable community development. With more than 25 years of professional experience in design, agriculture, and geospatial technologies, he has spent his career innovating approaches that bring food production directly into the fabric of communities. His work integrates agriculture into urban and suburban landscapes, not just as an amenity, but as infrastructure that supports community economy, resilience, and food systems. Quint's work is inspiring. He is not merely theorizing about a better future, he is actively building one. Through Agriburbia, he and his family and team are making food production accessible where people live and work, helping to address food supply chain issues at a variety of scales. His commitment to this effort spans disciplines and extends to the long-term legacy of work that continues through his son, Matt. Together, they are redefining the structure of our food systems. Please join me in welcoming Quint and Matt Redmond.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Oh, there we go. Very good. I don't know if I can live up to that. That was really nice, right? Yeah, in fact, maybe that's our new marketing material. How's everybody doing? It's Friday afternoon. Really good. Well, hopefully this is something new, right? Like we're in the landscape architecture business, we're in the development business, we're also in the technology business and have some patents and stuff, so we're gonna talk about a whole variety of things that might not be your typical landscape architecture stuff, but stick with me for the ride, and then you'll have questions and answers, and throw all the veggies you want as long as they're organic. Okay, they got a little bit of that. So here we are. So this is a little bit of a new idea, excuse me, for building the infrastructure for the next generations, and that might be different than what we've been doing all along. She went through all this. I think this is really important. It's sort of a family affair. My wife and I own the business together. We hucked our 401k in 1997 and put an extra computer in the spare bedroom and started the design firm. So $30 million worth of payroll later, we're still here, we're still working, and she is instrumental. In fact, she's working so the two of us can be here. Matthew, I'll let him introduce himself a little bit more later when he gets some slides to talk about, but he just graduated from Tulane as a biologist and an economist. And then we also have a series of a few partners. We had a much larger firm at one point in time. We had a whole floor plate in downtown Denver for about 10 years. Like all of the firms out there, we've had good times and bad times, but ultimately, at one point in time, we decided to go to a little different model. So we're pretty researchy oriented, and these folks are all over the country, and they have all different expertise. So one of the things that's really important to us as a firm is not to be only landscape architects. This guy's a civil engineer. She is one of the best mechanical engineers and plastics modeler. She's a SolidWorks guru. So there's all kinds of different pieces of the firm. We actually are a little bit larger firm. Agriburbia is an LLC that has 3 companies underneath it. We have a development company so we can actually do development. We don't really do that typically, but it allows us to partner on projects if people want us as a partner in a project, which is happening more and more now that people are getting the idea that food is really a piece of infrastructure. The core is this original piece that my wife and I started, and so probably most of the revenue over the years has been through typical landscape architecture projects or whatever. We're also really GIS-y. We were very early in the beginning of that, so a lot of GIS work. And then this is potentially the most interesting thing that he gets to talk about at the end. So operating the farms and how they operate. I think I can say this, but I'll have to kill you all. We're the Uber of farming. It's very cool though. It's like how the technology will change how food is supplied. So, this is an old slide. In fact, we've worked in almost every state now. There's a few that we haven't, projects or whatever, but I don't know. He's done stuff overseas. The question and answer, if there's some time, I can tell you we worked in Shanghai, or 2 hours west of Shanghai or whatever. They were so desperate at that time to be Western that I won that job because on a Zoom call, I held up my cowboy boots. And she said, "Oh, we gotta hire them. We want to be like Americans." So, all right. So here's the problem. And this is interesting because in the time that we started doing this, it's changed a little bit now. And the curve is not as steep. In fact, actually, America is one of only 3 industrialized countries left that actually has positive growth. The problem is there's still a lot of people and we're still killing the planet by living on it. And so we have to figure out what we're going to do to not do that. So the population thing may be leveling off a little bit, but there's still 2 problems that are really, really distinct that we're solving. So this all started as an idea about like how we get food and the need for farmers. Farmers, believe it or not, are environmentalists. They also have to do with your health and diet. Farmers are really energy. How many people have heard of agrivoltaics? Anybody? But putting solar panels on fields or whatever? Well, that's a land use, and it's a needed one. And they're also about the economics and the jobs of it. So the idea here is to mix those, right? To get them all to gel and come together. So this is a little bit of an interesting, a young lady from Cornell, a landscape architect, graduated from Cornell, and she got on her bicycle and she rode from Ithaca. She was riding her bike to California, and she stopped in Golden, Colorado, where we live and work at the time. And she was so enamored with what we were doing that she stopped and she stayed for 2 years with the firm. And so she's the one that normalized all of this data. And as you can see, we're basically, this is where she ended, and we're working on the next version. But it makes the point here. So here's the population trend. This is the farm population. This is the percentage of farmers in the U.S. labor force. This is the total number of farms. This is the obesity rate. This is the healthcare cost in billions. Does anybody see, excuse me, does anybody see a problem? Right? Like, it's sort of like education. We can build a classroom that could house, 2,000 second graders. Does anybody think that's a good idea? No, right? Like, there are certain things that are a human relationship that we need to figure out how to do at scale effectively, but much closer to the population. So the idea here is to figure out how to get more farmers out there. That is a design problem. This health problem that we have and all the environmental problems that we have, it's the same problem. It's the same problem. The problem is that our supply chains go from, yikes. Our problem is that the supply chains go from anywhere, literally anywhere, globalization, to wherever you're eating it. And that eats up all the resources, takes up all the water, takes up all the transportation, and then usually it's bad for you by the time it gets to you, right? So here's the ultimate idea is to figure out how to get stuff closer to you. And ultimately, we can play it for you at the end if there's time, but it's hard for me to get to one sentence because I like to talk a lot, but our firm's goal is to move production, farm production, food production, as close to consumption as possible. That is literally the design goal of the firm. So if you bring us 100 acres and say, I want 400 houses, or I want to do this, or I want to do that, we mix that in and we say, okay, let's figure out how to make that an actual health, a way to make those people healthier. So there's the call for 30 million new farmers is sort of interesting, but there's only 1 million farmers left. It's hard to believe, right? Like there's 10 or 12 million lawyers at any time. Is anybody a lawyer? Okay, nobody's a lawyer in here. Okay, there's 10 or 12 million lawyers. There's 8 million engineers. There's whatever. But farmers that actually produce our food, there's only 1 million left, right? And so the idea is, how are you going to get those? Where are they going to come from? You think they're just going to go out here and stick a shovel in the ground and it's going to work? It's going to work economically? It doesn't happen. This is the design thing, right? This is where it becomes a design problem. We're 13 million acres short, literally. Like this is a USDA thing. To get healthy, according to the USDA, we would have to have 13 million acres more of specialty crop production, which is the good stuff, not commodities, not wheat, not corn, whatever. And so here's the economic thing. So the Utah population is about 1% of the US. That would be about 135,000 additional acres just in Utah to provide all of the fruits and veggies, right, that we need to make us healthy, to solve the health crisis that's before us. Well, that also, ends up at about 50,000 jobs. Depends. These are actually, like you say, when you see the technology, they're high-end jobs. You have to know your plants. You have to be a really good farmer. But ultimately, if we actually really got healthy, not only would it take about 30% out of the healthcare GDP, but it would provide all this opportunity for what I call the chlorophyll future, right? The people that actually know how the planet runs and the people that actually are going to manage that and make decisions. All right. So I always get accused of being panicked because I'm panicked all the time or whatever. And this is a bit of an interesting thing. How many people have ever programmed something on your iPhone or made an app or whatever? Go ahead. You can raise your hand if you're nerdy. He's like, Dave. He's like, oh, yeah, I am. So if you're programming an app on an iPhone, does the rain ever get in your way? Nope. Does cold weather get in your way? Nope. So we have 31 seasons left to try and feed 3 times as many people on the planet, right? So we only have that many seasons to try what we think might work to make that food better and more and happen, right? So this is an urgent thing. We can't wait and say, oh yeah, somebody's gonna fix that soon. We have to figure out how we're gonna, it takes 5 years for a fruit tree to really bear fruit by the time it's grown, right? Which is interesting because all the venture capital people we talk to can't get, they just want an instant. Oh, we're gonna give you $1 million and the app has to be done next week. We're like, that's not how this works. But ultimately, we're in a hurry. People don't really know that, but we're in a hurry. All right, so what is Agriburbia? Agriburbia was not the name of the company. Agriburbia is a land use idea, land use concept. And in fact, there's one place, Todd would know this, Lakewood, Colorado, actually has on their books an ordinance specifying a use called Agriburbia, which was the original idea. So that if you're a developer and you want to basically do so many homes, so many dwelling units or whatever, you have to have so much food with it, right? How many people know how the parks work, right? Like if you're going to build 400 houses, you figure out how many people that it's going to be, and they have a whole algorithm that says, oh, you need to have 10 acres of parks in your project, right? To make sure that there's parkland and things and green space for people. We're saying, why would you do that and not require the thing that people need second only to water and air, food. So there's like a whole algorithm that we're working on. We actually have some model code that other cities are really actually going to adopt, or we think they're going to adopt, so that when you go to develop, you're actually required to put a certain number of calories. Here's a question for you. Who likes potatoes? Yeah, I was going to say, we're like close to potato world here. Tomatoes? Grapefruit? Maybe some, okay. Everybody loves different things. How many people in this room are going to eat 2,000 calories today? Yeah, probably, very close, 1,800 to 2,000 calories. It's incredible how close our caloric intake is. So that's the fungible unit we use to actually figure out how we're going to feed development or whatever. So we don't care about what the food is. We say whatever it is, if we can get X number of calories out of the same development, that's the target. So that's how we set it up. I'll show you that in a minute here. So there's a couple different types. We have in residential development, we have what we call civic farms, which is the open space. It's amazing how many open space agencies are calling now because there's no appetite to raise taxes, and they have all this land, and they spend a fortune spraying it with 2,4-D and mowing it twice a year, right? And all of it could produce food for the community, right? So open space, like that's the civic open stuff. And then private, we call them steward farms, but you would probably know them by the term CSAs or small farms or specialty crop farms. And then over here, we have a bunch of different institutional versions of what we do. We're on our 5th K through 12 school district, educational campuses, higher ed. Oh my, I'm gonna get killed if I say this out loud. What if Utah State said, let's get 15% of the calories that are consumed on campus from campus? What would that do to the layout of campus, right? Like set it as a policy, as a goal, right? Unbelievable the change that when you all of a sudden get out of the idea that, oh yeah, somebody's gonna put a Kroger on the corner and I'll just go shopping on Saturday afternoon. I hope the produce didn't travel 5,000 miles. Anyway, all right. So this is the key word. If you're gonna take a lot away from this, this is one of the key things. This is agriculture as infrastructure rather than agriculture as supply chain. So you have water, sewer, roads, electric, digital, and agriculture, right? It's built in. Interestingly, all these things, I love Maslow's. How many people know what Maslow's triangle is? The psychologist, yes. It's basically a list of all the things that humans need, right? Air first, water second, food third. Shelter is way down the list, actually, of things that humans need. But we as developers and designers, we never talk about the food part. So ultimately, if you think about agriculture as another utility, that's what we're talking about. So this is a project we did years and years ago, but it's still one of the best. And it did not get built because literally the day that this got approved, the next day is the day that Lehman Brothers caved in 09 or 08 or whenever that was. So the guy went out of business and it never got built. But the plat is still in place. Literally, the town doesn't want to give it up. The new owner doesn't want to give it up. But just to give you an idea, the project area is 618 acres. And basically, the farmer gets about $350,000 a year in revenue from it. Here's the new plan. 259 acres is either civic, public farmland, or private steward farms. These are all 2-acre lots, but this is a dense core. This is literally like a new urbanist idea. This is all alley loaded in here. Almost 50% of the land is still in agriculture. The net ag value went up to $2 million. Why is that? Why do you think that's? We're selling really good food, really good high quality calories that make the whole community healthy. We're not selling a commodity against a foreign country, right? Or whatever it is. We're not just hoping the price works. We basically model that in. So, and ultimately, This is actually an old slide. This is about 1/5 of the typical agricultural water usage. So the value of the agriculture went up, didn't go down. We didn't displace agriculture. We added to it by bringing capital, right? The thing that comes along the way are all these really cool design things. We did a project in Hawaii, and the biggest thing they thought was the coolest stuff, or these are ag alleys, right? So this is pretty typical development or whatever, and it's front-loaded garages or whatever, but we made sure, because everybody was gonna farm in their backyard, they were all gonna be part of the game, part of the thing. So these ag alleys they're like 12-foot wide, probably not paved, probably crusher or some sort of, road base or whatever. So you can access all the products or whatever. Where do you think people have coffee in the morning? Do you think they have it out in their driveway out here? Excuse me. They have coffee back here because one's talking about, oh, why are your tomatoes growing and my tomatoes are not? And all of that, right? Literally, the infrastructure provides the need to talk to each other. So my favorite thing, I've been at it for many, many years, and my favorite thing to say is that I love golf courses, I love all the swimming pools, all the things that developers put in projects. Recreating together does not create community. Producing something together creates community. Really. These folks, as part of the larger whole, they all know each other. I guarantee it. And then there's agritecture that we have. So there's outbuildings. There's all kinds of different things that come into play. And all of that gets counted as part of the caloric calculation for the development or the city. Just to tell you, I don't know how many folks, where everybody's at different stages of their career or whatever, but if you think the development side of the world is heavily regulated, you haven't done food yet. Food is the most regulated thing you can possibly, this is just a short list. I ran out of space on the slide, really, to put and now it's all the other things, right? Like all the water and everything else that goes into making food is all highly regulated. So this is not for the light-hearted, but you are all really smart, and you're gonna figure out how to get through this code or rewrite this code or figure out how to make us healthier, right? Like this is the design thing. There's people that follow rules, and there's people that don't. We're the ones that don't. I tell clients that right out of the box. They hire us, or when we go to an interview, I say, we don't read the code and then do something. We just don't do it that way. We do the design, we put the food in it, we do whatever, and then when you like the design and we get all the community on board, we figure out how to get it approved. And we just got one passed in Dallas, Texas. Took 2 years to do it, but it's brand new. And they actually are going to adopt some new code from that project, the town is. So that's a different way of looking at it. Okay, a couple of things real quick. Ag doesn't work because this is what the farmer gets, right? Like literally, because they're having to market it, they're having to have to transport it. This is all the trucks and trucking, refrigeration. Oh, if you get a chance, read a book called Frostbite. It's Frostbite. It's about the cold supply chain. The cold supply chain. If you think that we're not using too much energy to stay alive, oh my gosh, right? There's actually more fabricated cold storage space now in the world than Antarctica. Fabricated. I'm talking about cold warehouses and cold trains and cold trucks to move food around. Anyway, so all that transportation, all the packaging. If you do an Agriburbia subdivision and the farmer's there and whatever, this is it. You might have to pay a little rent for the land, but the farmer gets everything else because there is no packaging. There is no transportation. Like literally, the idea is that it's not only local, it's hyper-local. We want the people in the community to walk through the farms, to walk through the agriculture. That's how you know it's there. And then your kids can help pick it. You can help as part of the whole thing. All right. So this is where it gets a little math. Everybody up for some Friday afternoon math? I'm not, but I'm going to tell you about it anyway. So, all right. So one of the things we do as a company is figure out how this is really going to work for the development. We don't say you should do this and because it's cool. We say you should do this because it's economically the right thing to do. It's also healthy. It's also whatever. But so we have this thing called the community food fraction, and we just did it sort of off the cuff one day, and then we're like, oh no, and it's literally caloric proximity or food miles. So the food fraction is basically how many calories does your community consume, the denominator. We calculate it. We literally take, it has you have 300 lots, and there's, one single family house per lot, and there's 2.5 people that live in that, and they have 2,000 calories. There's an actual algorithm that we have that calculates the caloric need, and we've done this multiple times. We did it for Oahu, we did it for Douglas County, Colorado. We could do it for a building, but you can calculate how much food is there, just like you calculate how much water, right? When the civil engineer wants to figure out the pipe size, they go, well, how many faucets are we going to have, and how many? So we do the same thing with food. And then the numerator is how much is grown, not brought in, how much is grown in the same space. And I can tell you, it's almost nil. The one we did for Oahu, 0.056, 0.056, this fraction. It's Hawaii. You can grow anything you want, right? And they bring everything on a ship because we went with the economic idea of how to eat rather than the good idea of what's local and what's going to make us healthy. All right, here's the water thing. If you want to save water, so everybody's out there, we get it. We actually have our office and our home on the plains of Colorado. Here's the deal. Where are you going to go if you want to find a way to save water on the planet? I love Xeriscape. That's down here, right? Like that's this little sliver here, the Xeriscape. We consume, this is the best. This is how much you use for a shower and washing dishes and stuff. And this is how much comes in all the other industrial things that you use, your clothes and whatever. And this square is how much water is embodied in your food that you eat daily. So we have to figure out how we're going to eat better on less water. It's an absolute. We don't have a choice. No matter whether the population continues to grow or if it stays the same, we're literally draining the planet. And we're in the middle of the whole, you guys are a headwater state too. You're part of the compact and all the water going down the Colorado, so literally this is, you can do things on a design here in Utah that changes what happens in the entire western half of the country, literally. It's a little more about irrigation, drip irrigation. It's all high tech. This is about how food changes your health. And we're going to talk for just a minute about it, and then we're basically going to do the technology. To make all this work, when the downturn came, we said, we're going to go out and farm. I actually stood up in the middle of the farm. We had a whole floor plate in downtown Denver, really slick, I had a corner office. How many people want a corner office in their career? Oh, come on, you guys, it's Friday afternoon. Everybody wants to have the corner office, right? Okay. And then one day, literally, in the downturn, I walked in and I had to fire 24 people in one day. Well, there just wasn't any more work, and there just wasn't whatever. And I'm like, how many people want to stay with us and become a farmer? And to everyone's credit, only one guy quit. All the rest of the office stayed with us until they found other jobs, and we paid them, and we didn't pay them their full salary. But ultimately, we basically started a firm that actually went out and did the itinerant farming, and we built a bunch of farms, and we figured out how farming doesn't work, right? How specialty crop farming doesn't work. But all these people, some of these people are unbelievably high in people, PhDs and whatever, but they believe in the mission. And they would come, that's hard to believe, but that's him. Oh my gosh. It creates jobs. So as part of the thing that we're here and we're interested in talking to the ag school, all the horticulture jobs, right? Like when you see the technology and how, those are high-end jobs. I mean, these are like, you know, you got to know what you're doing from a technology standpoint to grow food for people now. So, but for every 2 acres, that's probably $130,000 a year management job to manage real food. There's a bunch more about it. This is actually a planner of ours who's no longer, she's actually alive, but she's no longer with us as far as the company. I was going to say, she's no longer with us, and it sounds like she died. No, she's actually delightful. She was a data guru. She was basically an Oracle DBA for the company. Like, we did so much GIS work and so much database work to track all of it. This is actually one of our partners. He's the vice president of HDR, right? But he's one of our partners. He's a civil engineer. This is why I think it's really, really important that you know all the other disciplines, right? You cannot spend enough time as landscape architects not understanding what they do, how they do it, and why. That doesn't mean you're going to do it. It means you understand what they know how to do. All right. Matthew gets to take it. These are some of his projects. You can talk about Maker?
I can, yeah, for sure. You can tell we planned that transition very well. So we're going to go over a few of the Agriburbia projects that are more recent. This is actually one that's in Colorado for the Adams County Housing Authority. So their main goal is to build as much affordable housing as possible. And something that is really unique about this one is that during the whole design process, they were a little bit apprehensive about, you know, taking that initial step and putting some sort of food infrastructure into the project. But we helped them walk through it by going through several different designs, right? We go and show a layout where it's 90% agriculture and 10% houses, and how many units that has and how much food that produces. And then we do one the opposite end. So there's 90% housing and 10% ag, and you can tell it's a lot different from a food production standpoint. And then you find somewhere right in the middle that works for their quota of what they need to meet for affordable housing and what makes the community really, really healthy. And then, like we've done before, this is all low impact development and has our technology in it, which is solar and geothermally heated. This is the one that Quint was talking about that just got approved in Flower Mound, Texas. And the cool part is that this is on the opposite end of the spectrum. So this is really high-end residential development. So Agriburbia spans everything that you can imagine from a housing and building standpoint.
Every lot. Not kidding you. It's Texas. It's crazy. It's a half acre or 3/4 acre.
And then the other really cool piece about this, we're doing all sorts of things like testing the septic. That's a little bit gross on Friday afternoon, but we are, to actually figure out what people are missing in their diets, and then we can grow what they need to be healthier if they want to know that information. And at each entrance, this is the design part of it, there are orchards and vineyards and those plantings so that when you drive in to go to your house, you drive by all of the food that you would need to fix your diet. So it's very calculated what is grown, how it's managed. And then even on the right-hand side here, this is all 55 plus housing. So the developer that we worked with, his favorite thing to say in town council meetings was, where's my mom gonna live? Like, where's my mom gonna live? I have young kids and I want them to be able to walk across to grandma's house and interact with her. So it's the idea of integrating many different types of housing and then having a way through agriculture to actually connect those two different generations. Were you gonna add anything?
No, you're doing great, kill it, man.
Okay, so this is one we have, it's a little bit smaller scale, but probably one of the most successful projects that we've had from a real Agriburbia implementation standpoint. This is what you're looking at right now is on the 3rd floor of a high-rise condominium in Denver. So if you can see, the infinity pool is right here, and then this is an entire working urban farm that's 3 stories up. And one of the really key pieces of why this project was so successful was because from the very beginning, we were in on the design. So if you look on the right-hand side here, this is, you can't see it, but it's actually a harvest room and a prep kitchen. So at the very beginning, we knew that the farm was going to be here and that it doesn't work if you can't put the food anywhere after it's grown. So intentional design decisions make a huge, huge impact down the line. And this, we would go and residents, every year, we would have a planting meeting and people would come and talk with us about what they wanted to see grown that year. And for insurance reasons, we couldn't have them actually on the farm deck, but part of it was planting an entire U-pick buffer around it, so they got that experience of snipping their, lettuce to take to the salad that night they were cooking with spaghetti. And several times we were down there and someone would just walk by while we were fixing irrigation, and then pick exactly what they wanted for dinner. And it was just this, whole circle moment of it actually really working.
No, that's right. I'll tell you. You'll know do you know who that's Nava, Trevor Hines, those guys? It's called Lake House. Yeah.
So, and then this is on the complete opposite end. This is a larger scale one in Brighton. And these are all farms that back up to the open space and the drainage. And the farms are actually in the floodplain. So it works to take all of the wastewater and instead of just putting it into a detention pond and then having it sit there and sometimes filled up, it grows food. And each of these are farm kit buildings that we have. And basically it's a live-work area, so you can grow what's in the floodplain and then you sell it to the people that are living within this subdivision as a micro business. This is one we did, also 55 plus in Chickahominy, and we learned an important lesson here from the technology side of things because it was a 55 plus community. Everyone had bought their lot there to actually be part of the process and grow their food and pick it. But he was there when we were selling lots and was all about the technology and, oh, the food is going to come on your phone and you can get a notification when it's ready to pick. And a lady stood up and said, I cannot do that. I bought my lot so I can go out and prune every day. So it's this really interesting aspect of food is such a visceral human thing that you don't want to eliminate that. You just want to elevate that process through design.
So this is in Richmond, Virginia, and it was Virginia's NHB Development of the Year, 2 years running, I think, actually, Chickahominy Falls. But and on launch day, 500 people came out for 50 lots. We wrote their names on potatoes and pulled them out of a gunny sack for the lottery. That's how much pent-up demand there is for food and health. Everybody wants to live in Napa, right? Everybody wants to live in cool places that produce stuff.
So I'll go pretty quickly through these last few so we can actually get to the technology. But this is another one we had in Denver, and it was a brownfield site. And one of the best things about this was we installed an AM farmer program, so people who lived there could sign up. And this is Jen right there, my mom. She's actually doing work. We're taking pictures or something. I don't know, but but all of these people, you had no idea who was going to show up to actually take part of it. And there was a line out of the farm to learn how to grow your own food. This is the one in Oahu that we were talking about, and doing the whole, from a research standpoint of calculating how much food was actually grown on the island. And then these are two of the K through 12 sites that we did when we were actually out building steward farms. And one was at the worst performing school in Denver public school system. So when we built it, you had no idea how it was going to go. It's bad to say, but were the tomatoes going to get stolen? How was this going to work? Like, were people going to do tomato fights? And when we built it, even though the students couldn't actually be on the farm because of insurance reasons again, there was a little test garden out there, and they defended the actual farm with their lives. I mean, they literally would not eat what was in the cafeteria, but would pick radishes and not even wash them before sticking them in their mouth.
I mean, this is the key. You get them to own it. They believed in it, and it was part of their school now. Oh, go back for a second, because this is, just so you know, there is nothing more violent than a third grade pumpkin smash. Like they were running, the kids were running underneath to get, pieces to re-smash them or whatever. We just like brought our trailer out so that they could, compost the pumpkins, and like unbelievable. These are all partners that we have that are restaurants.
That we actually grew food for, and this all plays into why we started developing the technology. This is our old farm in Golden, Colorado, and this is also about agriculture as a piece of hospitality, not just infrastructure. So you can see there's the farm right here, and this is we had a white tablecloth dinner with, ticket sales that people came up. We did a cropped, where we had 3 local chefs that we worked with that were in the center circle and basically had to run out into the field and pick everything they were going to cook with and then served it to everyone that was there for tickets. It was
the veggie chef. There was one from the vegetarian restaurant, and she won. It was unbelievable.
So it's a different way of thinking about how you can actually use ag as a tool for hospitality. And then this is the technology. So the good thing about having crazy parents is having crazy parents, and it's the bad thing about having crazy parents. But he's heard it all before, and I've told it to him to his face, so it's okay. But basically, out of all of the steward farming and actual weeding, irrigating, trying to figure out what was grown, where it is, you couldn't do it feasibly, and it just didn't work economically. You would drive an hour and then realize you didn't have to be at that site, and you had wasted, half of your day getting there. This is EAT Systems, and that is born out of fixing that problem and bridging the gap in time and space in agriculture. If you think about it, everything else right now comes instantaneously to you on your phone. Your entertainment, your music, anything you can imagine, your grades, even, if you can think of something, you can produce it in a 3D printer right away. The last thing that still doesn't do that is food and agriculture, and we can't really figure out why. And what we're doing with this is actually solving that problem. So each one of these sections that you see has a unique identifier, and anywhere in the world that you have that technology, you can pull it up on your phone, what's growing, if it's ready to pick, if it's ready to prune, if it has disease, and it's sort of this magic thing that connects people back to their food through technology. And this is actually out at our farm in Keensburg, Colorado. We're in the middle of doing all this, so it's not all finished, right? Where the complete automation is eventually the goal, maybe, but we're working through all that right now, literally coding it, working on the database, but there you go. That's some real database work and camera work with the.
So this is to prove the point that landscape architecture, planning, what you guys do in this building, is not all paper, right? It is not. It is inventing things and coming up with policy, figuring out how to do things better. Not all of it, right? Like I believe in drawings. I love to sketch. I mean, this has been absolute thrill to be here yesterday and see all the bumwad on the walls, right? And all the markers and everything. But there is so much more than that if you really believe that landscape architecture is the tip of the spear. We're the ones that create the change.
Here, you finish up the.
All right, here you go. So ultimately, oh, wow, I can hear myself. So ultimately, there's a question, and the question about every project really should be, what do we need to eat? So that's one. we all know that the diets are bad, really. Like literally 30 to 40% now of the medical GDP is chronic based on diet. It's well known now. It's not even disputed or whatever. So what do we need to eat? And then more importantly, where do we eat it, or where do we need to eat it? And then how do you get land there? How do you get water there? How do you get labor? These are all the high-end jobs that are going to run that trellis. And then how do you grow it there? Go ahead. Okay, so now this tells you how long we've been at it. Okay, so he has a brother who's in his junior year at Air Force Academy, and that's him. That's Michael Redmond, and that is that gentleman. And you keep going. And so we've been at it almost 20 years. Actually longer than 20 years, because all of Jenny and I both grew up on farms or farming. So we brought all of that into what we were doing too. All right, so is everybody like, they're totally crazy. Like this isn't, I never heard of anything like this before. Are we ready for questions?
I mean, does anyone have any? Oh, Craig Johnson has a question. Great, the perfect first question.
First of all, I want to thank you both for coming here. That was wonderful, and it points to so many important things. And the question I have is kind of strange, but is there any extension service program in the United States that's talking about the things you're talking about? Because we got to get there pretty soon.
So, well, I couldn't get thrown out of the room. But, so I'm teaching at K-State right now, but it's a land grant thing. And one of the reasons that it's so important that I'm here and that I'm thrilled to be here is because literally this is the opportunity to mix design with agriculture, right? And the extension agents. And in fact, our technology, the trellis takes a picture every 15 minutes if you want. And so you can imagine how good that is if you want to have an extension agent look at your squash or whatever you're growing. You can literally just tell them, you give them a code and they log in to your farm and they pull up the picture and they say, oh yeah, that's downy mildew or powdery mildew or whatever, right? So the overlap with agriculture and extension is like, that's what we do. I mean, that's the idea here. I mean, I'm glad you actually even saw that. I mean, that's the point of this.
Quint, I'd like you to meet Jake Powell.
Oh, there he is. All right, yeah. Oh, he was sitting over there ready to, yeah. He's the guy that was going to trip me, right? Yeah. He's the guy that was going to trip me when I was over there. Anybody else? Yes.
So I understand a lot of people would like to live in an area that has a lot of farming, but do you have people who like the idea of it, but they don't actually want to do the work? And if so, how do you handle that?
It's required. If you buy a house in one of our subdivisions, you have to work. Boy, that's serious. No, it's a joke. These are all professionally managed. Like that is really, really the point here, right? This creates the new farming jobs, right? That grow healthy food close to where it's needed. You need to know the plants, you need to know what you're doing, you need to know all that. Having said that, a lot of people that want, they actually want to participate. They buy a lot because they want to be part of it. They don't want to own it. They want to be able to close, a lot of, particularly the 55 plus ones, they want to, go see their grandkids or whatever, so they don't want the responsibility. But like Matthew was talking, the woman that came out, she goes like, I bought my lot here because I can't sleep at 5:30 in the morning, and I want to go out and prune. I want to go out and take care of the plants and stuff. So literally, it's not a requirement. In fact, actually, a lot of the subdivisions probably will run on their own. How many people know about golf course communities, right? Like, they're all maintained. It's in the pro forma, the HOA fees, all of that to run the golf course. Golf courses take a lot of water, and only about 2 couples play anymore, right? Like this is, in fact, actually converting golf courses to Agriburbia is one of, we have several in the hopper where they want to take the 160 acres that is the golf course, turn it into food. They already have a commercial kitchen in the clubhouse. So, but the answer to your question is, it's not a requirement, but when it's beautiful and you want to be close to nature and you're buying a lot that you literally have that opportunity. If you buy a typical suburban lot, that you don't have an opportunity to work in a vineyard that's literally a block away or half a block away. Good question, though. That's not even close. I mean, so we live and operate the company off of a 70-acre farm in Keensburg, Colorado, which is sort of western Kansas. It's out in the plains, and it's, dry and dusty or whatever. But we bought that farm, one, to live there, but also to develop the technology. All of the prototypes are there or whatever. But we bought that particular piece of land because it has surface water in a ditch. I don't know how much you all know about how water works and water in ag, but it has surface water that comes in a ditch, and that water is bonded to the ground. It's not a separate asset like it is in most places in Colorado and Utah. And ultimately, it also has a well, has a 1,100 gallon a minute well that would run a center pivot. Everybody know what a center pivot is, right? We don't own the well. Developer owns the well, right? Because it's on the exurbs, and he's stocking up on water for all of his developments in town. But our goal is to show, to demonstrate, and we're well on our way there, is that we can buy that, we can put an acre, it's 70 acres, and we can put an acre of our trellis out on drip irrigation. This is all like drip irrigation that you would put in a landscape. It has little dripper heads, right, that always get clogged up and, whatever. So this has dripper heads in it. We literally measure the calories per acre foot that we generate from the water or whatever. And we're going to show that we can make more money in agriculture on 1 acre of the drip irrigated trellis than all 70 growing sugar beets or any of the other traditional crops that are surround us. So the whole goal is to make the economics work too. We're saving water, but we're growing something that's higher value so the farmers make as much or more money, right? Does that answer your question? Well, so go ahead.
The drip irrigation that we're talking about is 5 gallons an hour, depending on what plant you want to grow. The center pivot that runs directly adjacent to us goes from May till October and is 1,100 gallons a minute. So the scale of water it's not even really comparable between traditional ag and what we're talking about, because you're growing different things too.
And they're growing things that aren't that valuable, right? Like it's just the history of it and where agriculture came from. So that's why I say it's both the actual water saving, but you could also do drip irrigation for something that you can't eat. And it would save a lot of water, but it wouldn't produce economic value. We're trying to keep farmers on the land too. Actually, Deanna was talking about that. Deandra was talking about that earlier before the thing, about how are we also going to keep farmers out there without the eventual, sprawl. I mean, here's the question for you. Is it really sprawl if I'm a developer and I go to the edge of town and I buy 100 acres and I turn that into 200 homes, but the agricultural production value on the same piece of ground triples? It can't really be sprawl because we're actually making more agricultural value. And the reason we're doing that is because the development brings the capital to the project that it needs to change, to get better. That make sense? Sorry. Am I on my soapbox? Yes, sir.
I was wondering, so with change of administration, have you seen any interest at the federal level for this development and agricultural model, like with the Make America Healthy Again initiative and things like that?
So, I'm glad you said that, because I'm going to test fire this on you as a crowd first. And don't get this wrong in any way. Does anybody think that we would be arguing, arguing about SNAP benefits if we had provided the infrastructure for people to take care of themselves? We wouldn't be arguing about SNAP benefits. We've created a situation where we basically enslave people to where they live. They need 2 cars, they need 2 jobs, they need, daycare, they need whatever. If you live in an Agriburbia, like a lot of these, the one that Matthew was talking about that we're just working on for the housing authority, they don't want 2 jobs. They want one of the parents to stay home and go out in the field and do what they do really, really well and produce food and stay home and make stuff. But there's no infrastructure to do that in a regular subdivision, right? We literally enslave people to the subdivisions that they buy into, right? Because we don't give them the infrastructure to take care of themselves. So the answer is, we think it's off the charts, right? And literally, RFK, the whole point of flipping the food pyramid upside down is to get more of what this produces, less commodities, right? Less of wheat and stuff. Here we go.
No, I mean, we oftentimes, we're teaching people, and we have a high student population from this region. And there's beliefs and values that are unique to this region. And they're embedded in a thing called Deseret and Plat of Zion. So if you wanted to bolster what you're talking about and make a particular connection to Utah, it fits like a glove with Plat of Zion. Because all those blocks that are downtown, if you go into those blocks, they're not houses there. There's old gardens that fed all the families and the houses outside of it. And, so I think Jake's really excited about this, but the one thing that I would say is you ought to connect with Daybreak and some developers here that should be wanting to do this kind of stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that is our time for today. So please join me in giving a round of applause to our speakers. Thank you so much for coming.